Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you part 9 of Rozeta. Rozeta is designed by Tatiana from Beyond Crochet and is a Scheejes Crochet Along 2019. For part 9 we're making this panel. This panel here is at the bottom of the blanket. From the last part we squared up the mandala, so now only on one side of the square we're going to be working this panel. So this runs up to the other corner. I'll take you through all the rounds that make up this part. This panel is about 20-21 rows and it's again a panel of tapestry crochet. I'll take you step by step through these rows. Hope it's a useful video for you. Thank you for watching. You have the wrong side of your work facing for row 1 of the panel, and with yarn A we're going to start. But then halfway this row, or halfway actually sooner, we're going to be attaching color D as well. But we're going to start with the wrong side, yarn A facing yarn A, and going to start in any chain 2 corner space on one of your 4 corners. Doesn't matter which corner you take, that's going to be the bottom of your blanket. So, chain 2 corner space, have yarn A, for me it's the green yarn, and attach with a slip stitch in that corner. Chain 2, which is not a stitch, and then in the same corner space work a treble. That is your first stitch, that treble. On the first 15 stitches, going to work a treble. So 15 trebles, and then we'll work a treble 2 together, and then we'll change to yarn D. So I'm just going to work 15 trebles. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 15. That's 15 trebles plus the one in the corner. Over the next 2 stitches going to work a treble 2 together, and then we're going to finish the stitch by changing colors to yarn D. So have yarn D at the ready, but first over the next 2 stitches a treble 2 together. So in the first stitch, and yarn over and come to the second stitch and take off 2. And now these 3 loops we're going to take off with color D. There we go. And this might just be a little bit tricky here in the beginning because you've got all these loose yarns. And make sure this yarn thread is facing you. You don't want it to be to the front. And that also goes for the green yarn. So we're going to continue now with yarn D. That's the purple yarn for me. In the next, now we're also going to start a repeat unit. In the next stitch we work 2 trebles, then 1 treble in the next, and then 2 trebles again in the next stitch. So it's going to be 2, 1, 2. We're going to work over yarn A. We're going to work over yarn A, and this thread here just kind of stays there a bit. And while we do so, make sure that this float, this is your yarn float, is facing you, so that it's to the back of your work and doesn't accidentally end up at the front. So yarn over, and in the next stitch, that's this stitch here, and over yarn A, but yarn A is facing you, so it's really on the wrong side of your work. 1 and 2 trebles. Next stitch, 1 treble, again covering yarn A, and then the next stitch is 2 trebles again. So 1 and 2 trebles in that one stitch. And now we're going to change back to yarn A. So I'm going to swap these two around. I just want to get this so I have yarn D to the front, and I bring yarn A up. There we go. To continue the repeat unit in yarn A, on the next 2 stitches work a treble 2 together, and we're again going to work over yarn D. And make sure your yarn D is facing you, that it doesn't end up on the other side of the fabric. And then take them all off. 15 trebles. On the next stitch is 15 trebles. This one, you see I'm working over yarn D, but making sure that it's slightly more facing me than it is on the other side, because you don't want to see it from the front. So if you just swap your work over, you can see you don't see yarn D. See, you can't see it there. It's a little bit visible there, but that's because it's the last stitch I just worked, so this thread still needs to come to the back. So those were 2 trebles. Need to work 15. Just gonna make sure that my yarn stays to the back. Some people really like to keep it on top of this stitch, like this. But I find that not always as efficient to keep my yarn hidden. So sometimes when I have it on top, I still see it from the front, so I tend to keep it really a bit more to the back. So 15 trebles. How many have I got now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another one. 6, 7, and 15. It's 15 trebles. The next 2 stitches, again a treble 2 together, and then we change to yarn D again. So on the next stitch, just 2 stitches, the first leg and the second leg, and now we're going to change to color D. That means I'm going to bring yarn A to the front to the front of your work, so not the still the wrong side, and then change to yarn D. And now you're at the end of the repeat unit. So here, these stitches here in the purple and the stitches in the green, this is the repeat. Going to do this 7 more times, and then half a time, but repeat this 7 more times. So now 2 trebles in the first, 1 treble and 2 treble, and then again this stretch in the green here. Do this 7 more times, and then I'll see you almost at the other side. When you've done the repeat 7 more times, you'll be at this point here. Then you need to do the repeat, well, basically an 8th time. So again, 3, or actually the 5 stitches worked in 3 positions in yarn D, and then again a treble 2 together, and 15 trebles, and then a treble 2 together. This last treble 2 together is also in the chain space. That's why the repeat is given separate in the pattern. I'll just show you this repeat here, or the last stitch here, also because of how we're going to treat the second color, yarn D. So you've done the repeat 7 times. Now start it again an 8th time, and then I'll just see you here. Almost completed the last repeat. I've just worked 14 trebles, keeping yarn D to the front, so I need to work 1 last treble and then a treble 2 together. So for that last treble, keeping yarn D to the front, this This is the last treble. We're now going to work the last stitch. That's going to be a treble 2 together, and we're going to keep yarn D to the side. We're not going to work over yarn D for the last stitch because that's going to give a nicer edge here. So otherwise you're going to see the turning yarn on the front. So in the next stitch, I'm going to make the first leg of the treble 2 together. Then yarn over and come to the chain space, and that's where you have the last leg. And take them all off. Now we're going to turn our work and come back, and then we're just going to bring this yarn up and take it back when we come to the other side. So now we're ready to turn for row 2. Row 2. What we're going to do for row 2, you have the right side of your work facing, and we're going to come back and work double crochets in pattern, in colors. What that means is that when there's a stitch in green, you work a double crochet in green. When there's a stitch, in my case here in purple, you work a double crochet in purple. So you're going to work a full row of double crochets matching the color of the stitch that you're working into. And we're going to be doing that every even row. So this concept of working in pattern, in color, we're going to be doing that every second row. I'll show you this first bit until we're about here, and then you repeat the rest until the end of the row, working in pattern. So row 2, I have the right side facing, and I have the color A on my hook. I'm going to chain 1. This is not a stitch. And then in the first stitch here, work a double crochet. In that first stitch, going to work a double crochet. In this next stitch also. And now I'm going to bring up color D, that's here to the back, going to bring that up. So in the next stitch, work a double crochet and bring up color D from the back. And now we're going to keep color D to the back of our work. I'm going to work over it, working double crochets as I go, hiding the yarn to the back and taking it with me until I need it for the first color change. See how I'm hiding that yarn there to the back of the work. See here. I'm going to continue this until I'm here. Almost to my next color change. I'm going to work, here's my last stitch in green, that last stitch there. So I'm going to work a double crochet on that stitch. And now change to color D. Changing to color D. And now the next 5 stitches are in purple, so I'll work those with color D. And be sure to take yarn A with you. It's 1, and you need both loops of course, not just the one. 2, 3, 4, and here is 5, and this is the last stitch before the next one is going to be in green again. So now I need to change colors. Change colors to yarn A. And now we're going to continue in yarn A again. Working over purple, keeping that to the back. And this you're going to repeat until you're to the end. There you go. You're going to repeat this until you're to the end. So working in color, in pattern, where you've got stitches from yarn D, you work them in that color. If you have stitches from yarn A, you work them in yarn A color. Repeat these doubles until you're to the end of the row. I'll just show you the last 3 stitches or so to again show you how to take how to deal with the yarn end at the end of the row. But continue working in pattern another 200 double crochets or so. I'm almost to the end of the row. I have 2 stitches left. So here's the chain 2 and there are 2 stitches left. So I'm going to work a double on the next stitch, working over yarn D. So I've worked everything in color up to here. Then for the last stitch I'm not going to work over yarn D. Then you just leave this one just to the back. Then in that last stitch work the last double. And now we're going to turn our work for row 3, and then again on the second stitch I'm going to pick up yarn D and then come back. Row 3, have the back side of your work facing the wrong side. Start with a chain 2, which is not a stitch, so that means in the first stitch we start the first of 15 trebles. So in that first stitch work a treble, and then from treble 2 onwards I'm going to work over yarn D again. Make sure to keep it to the front of your work, so that's actually the wrong side of course, but keeping it facing you so it doesn't show on the other side. Take it with me. So go to work 15 trebles. These are the first 15 trebles. Over the next stitch going to work a treble 2 together, and that's also going to be the last stitch, and then we're going to start the repeat unit. So the next stitch, the first leg, and the stitch after that, second leg, and now we're going to swap to yarn D. So change colors to yarn D. And this is now the start of the repeat unit. The repeat unit is going to be in the first stitch we work 2 trebles. There we go. Just 2 trebles in the first stitch, 1, 2 trebles. Then on the next 3 stitches 1 treble on each. 1, 2, and 3 trebles, and then in the last stitch work 2 trebles in one position again, and then we're going to change colors. 2 trebles, so that's 1, and this here is 2, and now we're going to change colors to yarn A again. In the next 2 stitches a treble 2 together. 1, 2, and take them off. And now 13, so it's 2 less, 13 trebles. 1, still keeping sure that you have yarn D facing you, that you work it away here, you don't see it from the front. It's 3, here's 4 trebles. I'm just going to continue until I have 13. Those are 13 trebles here, and in the last 2 stitches a treble 2 together. 1, 2, and then we change colors to yarn D. And this point is exactly the same as that point there. What we've just done here, I'm going to do this 7 more times. So these stitches in yarn D and then the stitches in yarn A. Do this 7 more times, then you'll be on the other side. Then you'll do this part again and this part, but not the last treble 2 together. You'll replace that by 2 trebles. But when you've done this full repeat, I'll just talk to you through the last bit as well. So do this 7 more times. After you've done the repeat 7 more times, you'll be here. This will still be the last stitch that you work. Then you work almost the repeat another time. So again, those stitches in yarn D, and then in yarn A, you start with the treble 2 together, and then you work 15 trebles. So that's the only difference between here and here. That there's a treble 2 together. Here you work 15 trebles. So the last 2 stitches are just trebles. And remember, on the last stitch, you work just the treble directly, not over yarn D. So yarn D you're going to take up in the next row. So that's the only difference between this last unit and the unit before, that the last treble 2 together is replaced by 2 trebles. So row 4 is a repeat of row 2. That means you're going to be working double crochets in every stitch in pattern, so in the color of the stitch below. So exactly the way we've done with row 2. Row 5, I'm going to start with yarn A and chain 2. In the first 13 stitches work a treble. Of course the first one is just going to be in the first stitch. And then from the second stitch onward, take yarn D with you again. 2, this is 3, continue until you have 13 trebles. 13 trebles. Just the last part before we get to the repeat unit. Over these 3 stitches here, going to work a treble 3 together. Let's yarn over. So in the next, over the next 3 stitches. So 1. This is 2. 3. 4 loops on your hook. I'm going to take them off with yarn D. That's how we're going to change colors. So to start the repeat unit, in the next stitch we're going to work 3 trebles with yarn D. So 3 trebles. So 1, 2, 3 trebles, and then over the next 2 stitches work a treble 2 together, and then we're going to change colors to yarn A. For the next 2 stitches, so 1, 2, and now change colors to yarn A. Yarn A. Going to only in the one position, going to work 3 trebles in yarn A, and then we're immediately going to change back. So 1, 2, 3 trebles in yarn A. Now we're going to swap right back to yarn D again. next 2 stitches, work a treble 2 together in yarn D, covering yarn A. So the next 2 stitches, 1, and then come to the next stitch. And then you're going to take them all off. In the last position, work 3 trebles, and then we're going to change to yarn A. So 1, 2, 3 trebles, and now we're going to change to yarn A. For the last part of the repeat, over the next 3 stitches, work a treble 3 together. And covering the stitches from yarn D. Or the just yarn D in itself, I should say. That's one leg. And oh wait, I lost the yarn over. And 2, and come to the 3rd position. 3, and then take them all off. Treble 3 together. We're now going to work 9 trebles. 9 trebles. And then you'll be working a treble 3 together again. And then you're at the end of the repeat. 3, work 9. 9 trebles. Good 9 trebles. Now over the last 3 stitches, here you work a treble 3 together, and then we're going to change colors to yarn D again. Third position, 4 loops on your hook, and change colors to yarn D. Now is this point the same as that point there? So everything we've done here, repeat this 7 more times, and then you're almost to the other side. Then you're going to do the repeat almost an 8th time, but only your last stitches are going to be different. So repeat this 7 more times and a bit, and I'll just talk you through the last repeat. When you've done the repeat 7 times, you'll be at this point here. You see you've got the last full repeat, and you'll finish with that treble 3 together. Then you work the repeat almost another time. See, these stitches, these are all the same. There's a treble 3 together, but then you don't finish with 9 trebles and a treble 3 together, but you finish with 13 trebles. Remembering to not work over your last stitch here with yarn D. So you're going to finish another repeat by only changing your last few stitches. So you're going to finish with 13 trebles, and then you're ready for the next row. Row 6, you work again a row 2 repeat. That means double crochets all the way, the entire row, and working them in the same color as the row beneath. So for row 6, work a row of double crochets in the same colors. Row 7, I'm going to start with a chain 2 in yarn A, and then start with 11 trebles. First one here is in the first stitch, and then for the second one you work over, you pick up yarn D, and then we start working over that as well. That's a second treble. 3, going to work 11. 11 trebles. On the next 3 stitches, going to work a treble 3 together, and then we're going to change colors. 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to change colors to yarn D. And now we're ready to start the next, to start the repeat unit. On the next stitch in yarn D, going to work 3 trebles. Going to work over yarn A, of course. So in that one stitch, 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3 trebles. And if you look here, you see now I have 3 stitches in yarn A, or in yarn D. Going to work a treble 3 together over those 3 and then change to yarn A. It's 1, 2, 3, and then change to yarn A. We have 3 stitches in yarn A, going to work 3 trebles on the first, then 1 treble and then 3 trebles on the last. It's going to be 3, 1, 3. It's 1, 2, 3 trebles, 1 treble on the center stitch and 3 trebles on the last stitch. 1, 2, 3 trebles on the last, and then we change to yarn D. For yarn D, on the first 3 stitches, work a treble 3 together. 1, 2, 3, take them off. Then here in the last stitch work 3 trebles. You can see how this is a mirror image of that. 3 trebles. So 1, 2, and then on the third one you change colors to yarn A again. On the first 3 stitches in yarn A, a treble 3 together. 1, 2, 3 stitches, which I'm going to take off. In the middle there are 5 trebles, so the next 5 stitches work a treble. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trebles. Here you have 3 stitches left in yarn A. We're going to work treble 3 together on these last 3. That's 1, 2, Here's 3, and then you take them off. Oh, sorry, and that taking them off, yes, has to happen in yarn D. There we go. Now, this is my beginning yarn tail. There we go. Now you're at the same point where we started, this point here. This is your repeat unit. You're going to do this 7 more times, and then you're almost to the end, and then you can do that repeat again, almost the same, just like 2 rounds ago. So do this 7 more times, and then I'll just talk you through the last part. When you've done the repeat 7 times, you're again at this point here, and then you do the repeat almost again. So you're going to do all these stitches here, and after this last treble 3 together, you're going to finish with 11 trebles. That's the only difference with this repeat. You don't finish with this treble 3 together, just work 11 trebles until the end. Row 8 is again a row of double crochets in the same color as the stitches beneath, so exactly the same as row 2, 4, 6. So work row A, again a row of double crochets. If you have an Art Tribe kit, you're going to leave yarn D attached, but if you have a Color Crafter kit, you can cut it at this point, because the next round you'll take color E with you. Row 8, I'm going to start with a chain 2, and then work 10 trebles. Going to take yarn D with you if you have the Art Tribe kit like I do, but I just happened to have needed to cut my yarn in the previous row because I hadn't come to the end of the ball, so I just cut off the last few centimeters, and I thought I'd just attach the new ball when I get to the first time that I need color D. I thought that would be just as easy. So I need to work 10 trebles, and then we do a treble 3 together. I think we'd write this as 10. Let me just check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So I need one more. That's 10. There we go. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yes, 10 trebles. And the next stitch, a treble 2 together. So these next 2 stitches. And then we're going to change to yarn D. So if you have yarn D still attached, you're going to use that one. Otherwise, take the new one. Also, if you have the a Color Crafter kit, you're also going to attach yarn E at this point. So treble 2 together, and then I just take my new ball here. There we go, and join new color. There you go. It's always just, this first one's always just getting everything organized. Then in the first stitch there, so we're now starting the repeat unit. In the first stitch there, work 2 trebles. This is going to be in yarn D or E if you have Color Crafter kits. So that's 2 trebles in the first stitch. 2 trebles in the first stitch. In the next stitch you work 1 treble, working over yarn A, and the last 2 stitches here a treble 2 together. 1, 2, and then we change colors to yarn A. Now for yarn A, we're going to work 2 trebles in the first stitch. So 1, 2 trebles in the first, and then 5 trebles, 1 on every stitch. So 1, 2, 3, Here's 4. I need one more. 5. What do I have one too many? 2 trebles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 2 trebles in the last stitch. So you have 2 in one, then 5, and then 2 in the last one. So 1 and 2. And now change back to color D again, or E if you have color crafter. I'm going to start here with the treble 2 together over the first 2 stitches. So 1, 2. You have here 2 stitches left, 1 treble in the next and 2 in the last one. 1 treble and then 2 in the last one. 2. I'm going to just swap to yarn A, and this is going to be the last part of the repeat. On the first 2 stitches, a treble 2 together. 1, 2, then 3 trebles, one on the next 3 stitches. So 1 treble, 1 on the next, and 1 on the next. Should be 2 stitches left here in yarn A, and those 2 a treble 2 together. 1, 2, and then we change it to yarn D or E. Alright, there we go. This is the repeat. Again, exactly the same as before. Repeat this 7 more times, and then the last one is again just another repeat with the difference here in the last stitches on the edge. So do this 7.5 more times. I'll see you at the end and just talk you through that again. The end of this row is the same as before. When you finish, you're at this point here. You've done the last repeat, and then you can work. Well, this is then again the same as here, but then you don't finish with these stitches, but you finish after your last treble 2 together with 10 trebles. And so it's the same idea as all these rows before. Just going to repeat your last stitches similar to the repeat unit, but then finish with trebles to the end. Row 10 I can be very short on. Is again a row 2 repeats. So work a row of double crochets in the same color as the stitch below. Row 11, again start with a chain 2 in yarn A, and then work 9 trebles. First one here is on the first stitch, and then number 2 you again grabbed yarn D from below, or E if you have color crafter. It's 3, so I'm just going to work 9, 4, 5, 6, and you're really starting to see the pattern of this panel. And the last treble, this should be 9. Let me just count them to be sure. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yes, so 9 trebles. you should have 2 stitches left. On those 2 you work a treble 2 together. 1, 2, and now we're going to change colors. So I'm going to grab color. I've still got D on my hook because I've got a color, because I've got our tribe kit. If you have a color crafter kit, this will be E. Now we're starting the repeat unit. In the first stitch, 2 trebles. One and 2. The second stitch, just the 1 treble. And on the last 2, a treble 2 together. And then we change colors to yarn A. That's 1, 2, and now we're going to change colors back to yarn A. I'll try my best not to tangle my 2 colors here. There we go. Yarn A. In the first stitch, work 1 treble, then 7, and then in the last stitch 2 trebles. Sorry, that's 2, 7, 2. So 2 in the next stitch. 1 and 2. 2 trebles in the first stitch. Now over the next 7 stitches, I'm going to work 1 treble on each. That's 1. And you're of course working this panel pattern-wise upside down, but you can, so these are the arches of the panel. You can really start seeing what they look like now. And 2 more, and then I'll just count and just be double sure that I'm doing it correct. Do count your stitches every once in a while. 2, 4, 6, 7. Yes, so that's correct. We have 1 stitch left, and in that stitch 2 trebles, and then we change colors to yarn D or E. It's 1, and this is 2, and then we're going to change colors to yarn D. This part here is a mirror image of that. So on the first 2, I'm going to work a treble 2 together. My tribe strand here is a little fuzzy, which means it'll be a bit harder to hide it because it's just a bit thicker here, but it'll be fine. And then take it off, all the loops, and then in the next stitch 1 treble, and on the last stitch 2 trebles. 2 trebles in that 1 stitch. Just 1, 2, and then we change colors back to yarn A. It's just a small section, a treble 2 together over the first 2, 1 treble, and then a treble 2 together over the last 2, so you've got 5 stitches here. And then you're already at the end of the repeat unit. So over the first 2, a treble 2 together, and now of course because yarn A is still a little fuzzy here, it's going to be really easy to hide. Yarn D, treble 2 together, then on the next stitch treble, just the 1, and here over the last 2, a treble 2 together. 1, 2, and I'm going to change back to yarn D or E if you have color crafter. There you go. And that's the repeat. So now you're at the same point as you were here when you had yarn D on your hook. You going to do this 7 more times, and then the last repeat is again going to be just a variation of this. You're going to do this 7.5 more times. I'll just again talk you through the last part. So do this 7 more times. When you've done the repeat 7 more times, you're at this point here. You've just worked that last treble 2 together. Then you work the repeat again, almost up to here. This is again a treble 2 together. Then you finish this row by working 9 trebles. So this is very similar to the other repeats. Just after the last treble 2 together, work 9 trebles to the end. Row 12, again a row 2 repeat, so work a row of double crochets in the same color as the stitch below. Row 13, going to start with a chain 2 in yarn A, and then start with 8 trebles. The first one, and from the second one we bring yarn D or E up again. It's 2, it's 3, and then we work yarn D or E, whichever you have on your fabric at the moment, and work that yarn in as you go, keeping it facing towards you so that it's not visible from the other side. And that should be 8 trebles. Let me just check. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yes, 8 trebles. At this point you have 2 stitches left. I'm going to work a treble 2 together over those 2. So 1, 2, and then change colors to yarn D or E, of course, if you have the color crafter. Now we're also going to start the repeat unit. I'm going to work 2 trebles in the first stitch. 1, 2, 2 trebles in the first stitch, then 1 treble, then here over the last 2 you work a treble 2 together. The first one and the second, and then swap to yarn A. There we go. In yarn A, going to work 2 trebles in the first stitch. It's 1, 2, just 2 trebles in the first stitch, and then followed by 9 trebles, which will bring you almost to the other side, or the other side of the not of the fabric, but of the green stitches here in yarn A. And then on the last stitch we work 2 trebles again. I'm really starting to form this arc. And 1 more. And that should be 9 trebles. Let me just check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yes, 9 trebles. 1 stitch left. In that last stitch work 2 trebles. So 1, 2, and then change colors to yarn A. Oh, sorry, from yarn A to D or E. I'm going to work a treble 2 together on the first 2, so this is again mirror of that. treble 2 together over the first 2, then 1 treble, and in the last stitch here 2 trebles. 1, 2, and then change colors to yarn A. There we go. You have here 3 stitches in yarn A, going to work a treble 3 together over those 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm just immediately going to change colors back to yarn D. I'm now purposefully not working over it here, but just taking it here as a float to the back, because then I just find that works a bit neater from the front. And now you're at this is the end of the repeat, because these 4 stitches here are the same as those 4 stitches there. So this is your repeat. Do this 7 more times, and then again 7.5, just like the previous few rows. I'll talk you through the last part again, so work this until you're almost to the end. When you've done the repeat 7 times, you'll be here. You'll have worked this last treble 3 together. Then you work again the stitches in yarn D, here the 2 trebles, then the 9 trebles and 2 trebles in 1 stitch, then again here these stitches in yarn D. Now this is all still part of the repeat as you've done it before. Then things change. After this last stitch in yarn D, you work a treble 2 together, so just a 2 together, and then you finish the row by working 8 trebles. So these last few stitches here are different. There's a treble 2 together and then 8 trebles, and the rest of these stitches are exactly the same as the repeat. Row 14, again a row 2 repeat, so again work a row of double crochets in the same color as the stitches below. Row 15, again the wrong side facing. Start with the chain 2, which is not a stitch, and then on the first 7 stitches we work a treble. Number 1, here's number 2, and then we pick up the second thread, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the last one here, 7. There you go. 7 trebles. Over the next 2 stitches, going to work a treble 2 together, and then we change colors again. So 1 and 2, and we change colors to yarn D or E, dependent on your kit. And my cat's really unhappy. He wants attention, but he'll have to wait. We're going to start the repeat unit. In the first stitch, work 2 trebles. So this is actually pretty much the same as we've done before. So in the first stitch we work 2 trebles. 1 and 2. The next stitch work 1 treble, and then over the last 2 stitches treble 2 together, and we change colors. This is all the same as we've done before. And then we change colors to yarn A. The center stretch is becoming quite a bit longer. In the first stitch 2 trebles, 1, 2 trebles. Then on the next 11 stitches work a treble, and that will bring you almost to the other side here. So on the next stitch, this one, we're going to work 11, 2, 3, and 11, and this is number 11. There we go. In the last stitch here we're going to work 2 trebles. 1, and this is 2, and then we're going to change colors to yarn D or E. And there we go. The repeat unit started here from color A and not here at this point. So from color A here, these 2 trebles, 11 and 2, that's the start of the repeat unit here. Because here these stitches are going to be slightly different to what we've done before. So the repeat unit started here with color A. Over these stitches, going to work in the first 2, going to work 2 treble 2 together. In the first 2 stitches work a treble 2 together. 1 and 2, which you take off. And then we're going to work 5 trebles, which will bring us almost to the other side here. So also that one stitch that is in yarn A, going to work over it. This is 2. And then number 3 here will fall in a stitch that is in color A, so that's correct. 3. This here is 4. And the last one here is 5 stitches. You should have 2 stitches left. On those 2 going to work a treble 2 together again. So 1, 2, and then we change colors back. Let me just get them untangled here. Back to color A. And this is the repeat here. So this, now you have yarn A on your hook, you can again start here with these 2 trebles in the 1 stitch. So this is your repeat. Going to do this 7 more times, and then I'll just talk you through the last bit on the other side, because that's basically going to be a mirror image of what we've done here. So repeat here, this bit, the stitches in the green and the stitches in yarn D, and then I'll see you on the other side. When you've done the repeat 7 times, you'll be at this point here. You'll have just done these last stitches in yarn D or E. Then the last part of this row is a mirror image of the first part of the row. So this is a mirror image here of the start of the row. What you're going to do is going to first work these stitches here in yarn A. That's the same as those stitches. So it's 2 trebles in 1 stitch, 11 trebles and 2 trebles in 1 stitch. So this is the same as that. And then here for the last band, going to do those 4 stitches is the same as the stitches below here. So you're going to start with a treble 2 together, 1 treble, and then 2 trebles in that last stitch. Change to yarn A again, then a treble 2 together, and then you finish by working a treble on every stitch. It's going to be 7 this time. So this bit is a mirror image of the first part of the row. So I hope you're going to feel the rhythm of how we did this. So repeat this part with row A, with color A I should say. Then these 4 stitches exactly the same as what we've done before. And then you finish by working trebles to the end. Row 16, we've just done row 16, which is again a row 2 repeat. So again a row of double crochets in the same color as the stitch underneath. When you're at the end of this row, you can cut yarn D or E, whichever one you've been working on. You can cut this thread because we'll be picking up a new color in the next round. So again, work a row of double crochets in the same color as the stitch underneath. Row row 17, we're again going to start with 2 trebles, chain 2 and then we start with 6 trebles in the first stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. 6 trebles. We work on you should have 2 stitches left here. You work a treble 2 together on those 2, and then we're going to attach a new color yarn. And the new color yarn, there we go, is color B if you have our tribe, and color C if you have Color Crafter. So over the next 2 stitches, work a treble 2 together. So 1 and 2, and I'm going to take it off with color B because I have an Our Tribe kit, and you take C if you have a Color Crafter kit. And just hold on to those yarn tails because the first stitch can open up a bit. There we go. In the first stitch here we're going to work 2 trebles. So 1, 2 trebles working over yarn A. Just close that a little bit. There we go. 2 trebles. In the next stitch we work 1 treble, and then just 2 stitches after that, treble 2 together over the next 2 stitches. And here we change to color A again. There we go. We're now going to work these stitches here in the middle in color A. The first, and we're going to start the repeat unit. So now we start the repeat unit. The first stitch is going to be 2 trebles, then 13 trebles, and then the last one again 2 trebles. In the first stitch we work 2 trebles. So 1, 2, and then in each next stitch work 1 treble. 2, 3, you're going to work 13, 4, and 13. That's 13 trebles, and here the last one you work 2 trebles. So 1, 2, and then on the last stitch we change colors to yarn B or C, dependent on your kit. On the first 2 and the last 2 we work a treble 2 together, and then the center 3 stitches are a treble on each. 1, 2, we take it off. In the center 3 stitches, 1 treble on each. 1, 2, 3, and then in the last, we just need a bit more yarn, the last 2 stitches here, treble 2 together. So 1, 2, and then we switch back to yarn A. and this is the full repeat unit. So these stitches here in yarn A, and then these stitches in yarn B or C. You're going to do this 7 more times, and you're almost to the other side, and then you're going to do these stitches in yarn A again, and then similar to here, you're actually going to work a mirror image of this here on the other side. So do your full repeat 7 more times, and then I'll just talk you through the last stitches. When you've done the repeat 7 times, you're at this point here. You'll just have worked those last 2 trebles 2 together and change to yarn A. When you work this side of the blanket is the same as the other side but in mirror image. So you work another section here in yarn A, so this is the same as that section there. This is exactly the same, so it's 2 trebles 13 and then 2 again in the last stitch. And this part here is again the same as the rows before. So treble 2 together, 1 treble, 2 trebles in the last stitch. Again, change to yarn A, 2 trebles, a treble 2 together, treble 2 together, and then you finish off with the trebles until the end. So this is a mirror image of the first part. Row 18, again exactly the same as before, a row of double crochets, so a row repeats from row 2. Work a row of double crochets in the same color as the stitch underneath, so it's changing between the 2 colors as needed. Row 19, start with a chain 2. Now on the first 7 stitches, so all these stitches, work a treble. That's 1 treble, and then from here number 2 we take yarn B or C with us again. That's 2, and this is 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's the last one. This is number 7, so this is in the last green yarn A at least for me. Then we're going to change to yarn, first need to just take off the first 2 loops, so there we go, and now change to yarn B or C. So on the stitches from yarn A you've worked yarn A. Now I'm going to go over to yarn B or C, and on these 4 stitches you work a treble on each. So for this entire round you're going to be working treble on the stitch below. So now we're working 4 trebles in yarn A, in yarn B, we're covering yarn A. There you go. And now we're going to swap again colors to yarn A. So we've just done 4 trebles in yarn B. Yeah, 17 stitches, going to work 17 trebles in yarn A. And this is going to be the start of the repeats. So 17 trebles in yarn A. So that's 1. This is 2. When you have 17, you'll be at the other side of this part of yarn A. So work 1 treble on every stitch in yarn A. This is number 17. That's the last one. So now I just change back to yarn B. See if you have color crafter. You have here 5 stitches in yarn B. Work a treble on all of those, 1 on each. 5 stitches, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one here, 5, and then we change back to yarn A. And now we've done the repeat. You're going to continue like this the entire row. So work yarn A on yarn A and B on B. So this is the same idea as with the row 2 repeat, but only now we're working trebles instead of doubles. So continue this idea to the end of the row. When you finish the row, after you've done the last repeat, you'll be here. Then work indeed 17 more trebles in A, then 4 more trebles in B, and then finish with 7 trebles in A. Row 20, you have the right side facing. You see, if you go a bit down, you see your popcorns from the corner. So right side facing, and this time we're not going to do a row of double crochets. We're actually going to be doing something different. We're going to be working popcorns. So chain 1, and now we're going to start with 7 doubles in the first stitches. So that's 1. In number 2, I bring up yarn D. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here's the last one is 7 doubles. I'm going to change to yarn B or C, depending on which color you have, which kit you have. Work 4 doubles in color B. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we change colors to yarn A again, and now we're also going to start the repeats. There you go. Now what we're going to do, so to start the repeats, I'm going to work 8 doubles in yarn A, then we work a popcorn in color B, then we work 8 doubles in color A again. So halfway here we're going to be working a popcorn. But first start with 8 doubles. So that's 1, 2, and I've just split my yarn, 2, there we go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is number 8. So that means I'm now going to change colors to yarn B. So 8 doubles. Now going to work a popcorn, and you're going to do, actually we're going to work a modified popcorn. I'm going to first come down and work a double treble immediately in the next stitch here below. So front post double treble, and then work the other 4 legs of the popcorn in that stitch. I'll show you what I mean. So once over is a treble, twice over is a double treble. I'm going to come down, so this is the next stitch, 1 row down, so in row 19, I complete the double treble. But now we need 4 more of these legs, so twice over. And now I'm going to come in the base of the stitch here. So this is actually very similar to the way we've done bobbles before. In the base of that stitch, work 3 more legs. That's 1, 1. Now I need to complete this stitch completely. There we go. I was just a little confused myself. 1, and then here's another 1, 2. Because we're doing popcorns, that means you're completing the stitch 2, 3, and 4. 4 plus that first one is 5. So open up the loop and come back to this first stitch here. Pick up that loop, pull through, and now we're going to do a chain 1 to finish the popcorn, but that chain 1 we do in yarn A because we want to go back to yarn A. The chain 1 is in yarn A. So now we've got yarn A back on our hook again. And we continue by working 8 more double crochets, but skipping 1 stitch to the back here. So we're going to skip 1 stitch to the back, and that is because that's the position where the popcorn is. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Just need a bit more yarn. 4, 5, 6, 7, and the last one here, number 8. And now we change colors to yarn B again. See if you have color crafter. 5 stitches here, work a double crochet on each of those. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and last one, 5, and we change colors to yarn A. This is what you've now worked. Going to do this 8 more times. That'll bring you almost to the other side, with the exception that your last stitches aren't going to be 5 double crochets, but going to be 4, like you have here on the first one, was also 4 doubles. So this stretch, repeat this 8 more times, and I'll just tell you on the last stitches what to do there. And just to show you the end of this row, you see here's the last popcorn. Work 8 double crochets, then 4 double crochets in yarn B or C, and then you finish with 7 double crochets to the end. Row 21 is repetition of row 19. So you have the back side of your work facing. You're going to work 17 trebles in yarn A and 5 trebles in yarn B or C everywhere, except on the outer edges where you'll have 4. So this is what it'll look like from the back. Then if I just quickly flip it over, this is what it looks like from the front. So you're going to be like framing those, so the popcorn is really on its own. It's like nicely framed by the stitches. So that's what it looks like from the front. And so row 19, you're going to be repeating that for this row. When you're at the end of this row, you've finished part 9. This is what your panel looks like. If you extend it through, you have the same idea all the way to the other side, which is over here. You can work away some of these yarn tails. I've still got them on the back here. You can start working those away, and then next time we'll continue this panel with the other half. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week for part 10.